Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor. And today we're going to head out and go for a drive and talk about the 2021 Ford Mustang Mach E. This is straight up just leaving from my house. This is like you're starting to drive in the morning in your Mach E. Come out. We've got our Grizzly 240 charger here. Shout out to Grizzly for hooking us up with one of the best value and best quality, honestly, electric vehicle chargers on the market. And typically I would wind this back up in the garage, but the old Tesla Model Y is in there, and I'm going to do that when I get back. Hop on in. Now this is something interesting. I don't know if it's the fact that we've got a spare key from Ford or what, but the proxy key doesn't like to work on the front door, but oftentimes you can do the back door, unlock that, and then unlock the front door. So not the first nor the last of the electrical gremlins that we've had with the Mach E. But we're popping in. Range, you can see 240 miles on a full charge. That range number right there adapts to however the vehicle has been driven lately. It adapts to if your climate's on, it adapts to how your driving style's been, the temperature outside. So that's a very attainable, reachable number. It's obviously lower than the EPA's estimated range for it, but I've been doing some higher speed driving around here. I tell you, nobody does range numbers better than Chevy with the Bolt. I really appreciate how they have like your middle number and then like a best case scenario and worst case scenario. But this gets the job done. See, we got our heat on, got our heated seat as well, heated steering wheel. I don't care for how they do the heated seat controls. You have to press this and then you get a little screen that pops up and then you can choose your heated seat level. There's also an auto heated seat option. It seems like you could just press it just in the same way you press on and off for the heated steering wheel, but it is what it is. Turn our fan speed down to 1. Roll out of here with the rotary shifter. You can hear the subtle beeping. You got this nice 360-degree camera and a large backup camera. We've got it in engage drive mode right now. There are two others, whisper and unbridled. I do appreciate that you get full regenerative braking even at 100% battery. I was able to come up to that stop sign and come to a stop without using the brake pedal. The Mustang Mach E drives really nicely. It's got a very substantial feel to the steering, to the chassis. It takes the bumps pretty well. It's not luxury car smooth, but it's on the higher end for your average everyday type of car. Kind of commonplace vehicles, if you will. Also particularly quiet. That's something I've appreciated as well. Quiet even for an EV. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I think that's really nifty, especially since you have a wireless device charger right there. Works well in the screen. You kind of have the Android Auto layout, and then you still have your climate down there and your various other screens, your trip info or navigation or things you can get to. I will say the first time I hooked up Android Auto to the car, I didn't have any audio playing capability. I was trying to play music out of Android Auto and it just wasn't happening. So let's see if it works right now. Yep. So it is working. That was just one of the many bugs that we've had in this car. Some other examples are last night I was driving this after filming a review and the miles per kilowatt hour right here was just like undetermined or something like that. It was something or other, undefined for all this trip 1 and trip 2. This evening in the Mustang Mach E, the Bluetooth won't connect to my phone, even though the phone says it's connected to the car. It won't come up on the screen for audio or for Android Auto. And it also says our miles per kilowatt hour is undefined for all the trips, including this trip. We've also had a few instances where it'll chime at us for random reasons and not say anything on either of the screens, but just kind of have a warning chime come up. so much speed. Not surprising. I mean, it is an electric vehicle. You've got all that instant torque, but 346 horsepower, and it's very consistent with that number. We tested something like 5.3, 5.4 or so seconds 0 to 60 repeatedly, time after time again, very consistently. Even up here, 60-ish miles per hour, very calm and quiet. Another small complaint of mine, this front screen tends to have an electrical humming sound, especially at lower brightnesses. I noticed it particularly when we took a road trip the other day and we're coming home late at night. When I turned the brightnesses down, the buzzing got louder. And if you're someone who isn't very annoyed by noise, by sounds, then it'll be no problem. Melissa was like, yeah, I can hear it, but I don't care. But for me, I'm the type of person that any sort of rattles or say like a clock in the bedroom that's making a buzzing sound, that bothers me. And it bothers me in the screen here. If you fancy it, you can turn on propulsion sound. That makes it so when you press the gas, you hear kind of a whirring sound, kind of from the back of the car, coming through the speakers. That's another electrical gremlin we had back when we were doing our live drive yesterday. We tried turning on propulsion sound and it would not enable. We even shut the car off, opened the door, closed it, turned it back on, and still could not turn propulsion sound on in any drive mode. Anyway, let's try putting it in park and then... Can we turn it on? Nope.
Nope.
Yes, let's restart the car.
Wow. You guys are seeing this, right? Okay.
Also, it makes a stupid sound when you start it and turn it on.
It was cool.
I think it's stupid.
Alright.
Wow.
Why is it not letting us put on the fake engine sound?
I mean, I've turned it on before. Definitely used it.
Huh.
So, But it is working now, so switch into unbridled. I'll give it the beans, you can see what it sounds like. That noise kind of just crescendos. It's kind of fun. I appreciate that it's there. I typically have it off in my daily driving, but it's still nice to have. Another thing that I've noticed multiple days now in the Mach E, it loves to sit at 100% battery. It'll probably be at 100 for most of our drive, and then after that, it starts to tick downward pretty steadily. It's almost kind of like in a gasoline car when you can fill the gas tank past full, and then it's like way up in the nether regions above the F mark. It seems like it's kind of what it does with the battery as well. I'll tell you one thing, having such a competent chassis and so much instant power really makes you feel irresponsible sometimes when you're at a stoplight or something and you're like, man, I'm gonna just nail the gas and get right past all these people and over into the left lane or something like that. It's nice. Coming over some broken asphalt right now. Let's see how well the Mach E takes it. Regarding the name Mustang Mach E, all I'm going to say on that is that it doesn't feel like a Mustang in here. It doesn't even feel like a 4-cylinder Mustang. It feels like a perfectly good SUV or crossover, and it's a shame that Ford is not sticking to that a bit more. It's not like the type of situation like when Lamborghini built the Urus, which is an SUV. The Lamborghini Urus still feels like a bonkers mobile. I mean, it still feels like a Lamborghini. It just happens to be tall. This doesn't still feel like a Mustang. It doesn't give you Mustang vibes. It doesn't make you feel like you're behind the wheel of a Mustang. Everything else aside, that's my main take on that subject. I think if it's going to be called a Mustang, it should at least be true to how a Mustang feels, and it doesn't. But it's still a really good car. I mean, it's peppy, it handles well. I like all of that. The only downside to unbridled mode for me is that the steering gets pretty heavy. So I usually find myself driving in engage mode. The only downside to engage mode is that it doesn't actually show you your battery percentage. It just shows you a bar right there, which I suppose for 90% of daily driving would be fine. Just for someone like me, I kind of like to geek out about the stats and how much energy my vehicle's using and where I'm at. So I like having the percentage there. throw it back in unbridled mode and toss it around this on-ramp. Even with these relatively narrow tires, still have a lot of fun. The Mach E has a fairly competent active lane keeping system. Let's turn cruise on right now, and we'll get up to this corner. It's very subtle too. All the beeps and bongs are fairly reserved. Go, lane keeping system on right away. It finds the lanes, and you can see it is taking us around the corner with total confidence. I have had it screw up a few times, and I have had it try to take off ramps and then have to catch itself. And there it is beeping for us to put our hands back on the wheel. It takes about 15 seconds for that to happen. So it's not the best system on the market. I think Hyundai Genesis's system for active lane keeping is a little bit better. I think Volvo's is a bit better. Cadillac Super Cruise definitely better, and Tesla's Autopilot is a bit more competent as well. But it's certainly a nice feature to have, and it works well. Now, I haven't even mentioned, but this is the extended range all-wheel drive model. So we're dealing with a lot of weight. This thing's over 5,000 pounds, and you can feel it when you toss it around. If you really wanted to maximize your range, you'd get the rear-wheel drive model. And I think most people would be perfectly fine suited with the rear-wheel drive. I don't think all-wheel drive is particularly necessary. I don't even think it's necessary for propulsion. This thing's actually a tad slower, just a hair slower than our standard range rear-wheel drive Model Y, and that thing gets off the line plenty fine with just having rear-wheel drive. Oh, draw me! Oh man, they are neck and neck. Something I do appreciate for you EV people, you can control whether the heater is running or not. So say you want the climate control set at 68 degrees just to get some fresh air, and you don't want the heater to necessarily kick on if it goes below that, then having this e-heat thing off will keep that from happening. So I like that you can manually control that. Right, let's talk about this interior a bit. I've always been a fan of Ford's rotary shifter. The one thing that's kind of strange about this one, especially compared to the Bronco Sport, which we just had, it never stops turning. It's just a stateless controller that turns forever. And it doesn't feel as nice as the Bronco Sports that you just bloop, and then you're in drive and it stops there and you're like, cool. It's like you've shifted into drive. It's very solid. This, not only is it more flimsy feeling, but also it just keeps going. Minor, but I don't understand why it has to do that. Can you hear that screen? Let me take my headphone thing out and put it right up there. It's a pretty significant buzzing. Again, minor. Some people won't care at all, but if you are somebody sensitive to that, be wary. We can see since we left the house, we're down 19 miles of range on there, and we've traveled 18.5 miles. So like I said, it's very accurate. This big center screen works okay, but it feels like it's kind of just large for largeness sake. I actually preferred Ford's Sync 4 system in the F-150. It was smaller, but more straightforward, easier to use, and I think a better utilization of space. Once you get used to how everything works in here, it's fine, but look at this delay, like when I swipe. And the stuttering right there, the refresh rate is really low. And that makes you feel like you're using a more rudimentary product. You can see I accidentally clicked on an Android Auto right there, didn't even mean to. You still have to learn that your main apps are up here and pick what you need from there. So once you get past the learning curve, it's not bad to use. There's a lot of scrolling, a lot of having to know where things are, and again, just not the prettiest thing to look at. Practical storage is pretty good. There's a nice under compartment down here. You're able to fit a tablet or purse or something like that. You've got your wireless charger. under here, a pretty decently sized center console that closes. Everything feels really nice. The build quality is good. Materials are good. I'm sure you've heard that from a lot of different reviews. The B&O sound system is decent. We've got a full dedicated review to that. Hit the link in the description if you want to see more. We've got USB-A and USB-C, as well as a USB-A and C in the back. Let's hop back there. I like the door handles from the inside. Very easy to open and use. I even like the door handle from right here. It's cool how you just click it and it pops open. My gripe comes with the rear door handle, because while the front has this nice little finger grip pull deal, the rear doesn't. So you have to press the button and then grab in here and pull out. Fine and easy, you think, but my fear comes from you push that open, you go to pull the door, and you get about that far, and the emergency jam closes, which means it'll close again. Now, what if you put your finger in there and you're closing it, you've got like groceries or something, and someone comes, a kid or whatever, and pushes on the door, slams it closed, and your fingers get caught in there. I'm sure the chances of that are pretty minor, and I'd like to think that Ford engineers thought of that. It's just a shame that they couldn't have done the same thing right there, where they just put a nice little grabber. It would have been easier. Because not only that, you have to move your hand. You have to click here and then move it where it is, whereas this, super easy, just click and pull, one swift motion. Back seat has a good amount of space. The seats do not recline, but they're decently comfortable as is. I'm 5'10" and have headroom and knee room. Foot room's a tad limited when this seat's set for me, but it's a perfectly fine place to be. No heated seats back here. Small center armrest. You do have vents, and as I said earlier, 2 USB ports, one A and one C. These seats do fold and create quite a bit of room for the trunk. It's actually able to fit 5 full-size Toyota 4Runner tires in the back, all packaged in there nicely. This rear cargo area, again, pretty comparable in the compact crossover sphere. Someone did point out to me they don't appreciate that there's this lip. They have a Ford Edge, and they can kind of scoot things in and out, pull them out without having to lift it up and over this, and I agree. I think it's good to have a flat load surface in the back, and it's a shame that you can't readjust this bottom part to facilitate that. You do have a bit of storage under here. Got a big center area right there. Put your charger or something like that. 12-volt outlet, subwoofer, and a few hooks. So the Ford Mustang Mach E. Really cool car from Ford. I think they did a great job. There's definitely some growing pains. There are some beta-ish feeling elements about the car, just the various electrical issues we've had with it. I think this is an excellent car. It drives really well, it looks good, it does all the car things well. In terms of an electric vehicle, I think there are more compelling competitors on the market, and I also worry that this car is really not going to be relevant in about a year, just based on its range figures, its cost, and kind of how it markets itself. It's cool now, but with so many competitors coming, Hyundai's Ioniq 5, the Volkswagen ID4, all of the Tesla models, the new Chevy Bolts, that's just what we have released right now in March of 2021. There are so many other competitors that are planned. The Mustang's cool right now in this day and age, but I don't think it's going to age super remarkably. I think it's going to depreciate a bunch, and for the right person, it's a great car. But if you're an EV enthusiast, I think your money's best spent elsewhere. So if you want a good driving car first and an EV second, maybe as like a second vehicle or something, definitely check out the Mustang Mach E. If you want an EV first, maybe you're trying to make yourself an EV-only household, you might want to check out some of the other options. Thank you so much for watching. We've got a ton of other videos on the Mach E, so check the links in the description, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.